So, I think we can start. Hello, everybody, and thank to all the registered participants and speakers for the interesting discussion that I hope we are going to have on how to protect our European cultural heritage from potential fires. This webinar is one of the events of the European Fire Safety Week, and today is the first day of the European Fire Safety Week for this edition of this year, and then the event is organized by Fire Safe Europe. We will start with some presentations that will set the scene, and then we will have an interesting panel discussion. We start with our welcome with our president of our organization, Fanny, who is has an extensive experience in EU public affairs, specializing in fire safety, energy, and sustainability. And before her current role as standards and regulatory affairs leader at Parco and Scorning, Fanny worked at the Danish Institute of Fire and Security Technology, DBI, and Rockwool International. She's today the president of Fire Safe Europe, working to enhance fire safety of buildings across the EU. Please, Fanny, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Eugenio, for this nice presentation, and I hope everybody can hear. Yes, and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. It's very nice to be able to open the Fire Safety Week with this very interesting event. Thank you all for being here. So as Eugenio explained, I'm the president of Fire Safe Europe, and it's really a privilege to have you here today to discuss fire safety for cultural heritage. We're going to look not only at technical issues, but, it's a matter of safeguarding Europe's shared identity, history, and legacy. As you know, we have a lot of cultural heritage sites, from historic building to invaluable artifacts, and they are the symbol of our European culture and histories. They represent centuries of knowledge, artistry, and resilience. So as recent fire incidents have shown, these sites are also incredibly vulnerable. So we need to look into this a bit more closely. The risk of fire, whether it's aging infrastructure, environmental factors, new technology, it threatens to erase this irreplaceable part of our past. And for Europe, this is very important. So we need to make actions. We need to be proactive, but also be comprehensive and have smart solutions for this. We believe that European Union has a role to play in this area. While we know that fire safety might be different from region, it's deeply tied to local context. And we also know that this is often seen as a competence for the different member states. We still think that a European-wide collaboration is very important. If we can establish common principles for coordination and support, we can strengthen our response across borders. We can learn from each other. So it's not about imposing a one-size-fits-all solution, but it's really how we can create collaboration, a framework where we can learn from each other and benefit from the shared knowledge and resources and expertise. We think that fire safety must become an integral part of how we care and sustain for the cultural heritage, and we believe that European Union has a role to play there. And they can promote that by funding research and innovation and encouraging knowledge exchange between member states, like they do a bit already with the FIEP. We just need to carry on and do maybe even more. This event will bring together experts and leaders from various sectors. You'll see fire safety engineering and firefighters, research institution, private industry, and together we can try to work together to talk about way forwards, discuss technological innovation strategies, and all of these things that can actually make a real difference. And yeah, we believe that it's going to be a very meaningful event today. So I'm very excited and thrilled to hear for all the speakers that are here today. And Eugenio will, of course, make a presentation of all of them. Yeah, I hope that you will find this interesting. And we hope that Fire Safe Europe can play a role and continue to work alongside everyone here around the table to build a safer future for our cultural heritage. So yes, that's basically what I wanted to say today. And thank you so much again. And I look forward to our discussions.
Thanks a lot, Fanny, for your welcome. Our next speaker for the opening statement is Jakob Vedsted Andersen. Jakob is the CEO and Chief Commissioner of the Greater Copenhagen Fire Department. Before his current job, Jakob was the Chief Fire Officer of the Aarhus Fire Brigade and the Copenhagen Fire Brigade. Jakob is Master of Science in Engineering from the University of Aalborg and studied Fire Safety Engineering at the Lund University. Jakob is also board member of FEU, this is the Federation of the European Union Fire Officers Associations, and board member of the Danske Beredskaber, the Danish Association of Municipal Fire and Rescue Service. We are all aware of the devastating fire incident at the stock exchange in Copenhagen, and we look forward to learning from Jakob's insight and experience. Thank you, Jakob, and it's a privilege to have you here today.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for the nice introduction, Eugene. First of all, also thank you for the invitation to join your webinar on this very, very important topic. We have experienced in Copenhagen, since April, that talking about cultural heritage is a very important topic for the fire service around Europe. I was asked right after the fire, why do you bother so much about these old buildings and these paintings? It's because it was just a building, but it's not just a building burning. It's just not the interior of the building burning. It's actually our cultural heritage. We should be very much aware what cultural heritage, what it does to a country, what it does to a nation, what it does to a people, what it does to us in Europe. As I see it, cultural heritage creates a shared framework that binds people together. It provides a sense of identity and belonging. Cultural heritage has true history, defined our history, defines our values and cultures, and actually also serves as a source of pride and recognition on a global scale. I think everybody knows about Notre Dame. In Denmark, the awareness of the fire at the old stock exchange, it was huge, really, really huge. And we should not underestimate that our cultural heritage is also part of our tourism and also therefore a part of the economics of the country. So overall, the cultural heritage, it refers to the tangible and non-tangible elements that represent the culture and history and the identity of our society. And these things, they are passed down from generation to generation, and therefore we have a huge, huge obligation to protect it in our generation so we can pass it on to the next generation. I had a long talk some years ago with the head of security at the Royal Danish Library. And we had a talk about how to protect all those books, all those papers, all those documents within the Royal Danish Library. As he said, if the things are stolen, police will probably be able to recover them. They'll find them somewhere. If they are damaged by water, there are a lot of techniques today so you can recover it fully. But if the books or the document burns, they are gone forever. And that's actually the impact that fire has on cultural heritage. It destroys it and it won't come back. So we have a huge obligation to take good care of it, to be able to pass it down to the next generations. Copenhagen is a very old city. We had a king back 400 years ago, King Christian IV. He was very, very eager to put Copenhagen on the map. And he made a lot of great buildings in Copenhagen that's today stands and also shows the history of Copenhagen. This year, in April 16th, actually the Queen's birthday, we were alarmed in the morning, 7:30, to an automatic fire alarm at the old stock exchange. We knew that the old stock exchange was under renovation. They were getting a new roof, a new copper-plated roof. So the whole building was covered in scaffolding and plastic. We have been there several times for automatic fire alarm, and when we arrived that morning, no signs of fire at all. So when our incident commander and team leader went to the the fire control panel for the automatic fire alarm inside the buildings, there was no signs of fire. But the display said that several detectors has been activated. So when they were looking at the fire control panel, they got a call from the firefighters outside the building saying, if you haven't seen it, smoke is coming from the roof. And then everybody knew it was serious business. It was a 400 years old building with now smoke coming from the roof. And all of the fire service in Copenhagen was activated to respond to this incident because we knew it was a 400 years old building. Actually, it was the first listed building in Copenhagen. It was the outer walls was brick walls, but the interior, the bearing constructions inside the building was wood and old wood, 400 years old wood constructions. And inside the old stock exchange, there was irreplaceable paintings, very, very historic paintings, lots of statues, lots of things inside that building that need to be rescued out. So when the firefighters did a tremendous job on this, they actually tried to put out the fire in the beginning, but there was no use on that. So at some point, they decided that they wanted to limit the fire spread and make sure that it would be able to salvage some of the things inside. All the firefighters were occupied by putting out the fire and limiting the fire spread. So a huge effort was made by so many people at the old stock exchange, the firefighters, the police, military, civilians. And behind me, I'm not going to show a slideshow here, but behind me on my background here, there's some pictures from the old stock exchange. The picture you have here is actually taken inside the old stock exchange at the time where we were taking out all the paintings. Actually, you can see if you look closely, if I can make my fingers point right, if you look closely up here, you can see close to the wooden bearing construction, you can see an orange light. That's actually the fire going through the wall. At the same time, civilians, police, firefighters were trying to rescue out these pictures. And as you can see on the other side, you can see pictures from the being taken out of the old stock exchange. The picture they are carrying here is actually a very, very famous picture painting made by P.S. Krøyer. And I'm not sure that the National Museum of Arts would agree with the methods we used taking out these pictures, but actually we were able to rescue 99% of all the artworks inside the building. The firefighters had a strong battle and actually managed to rescue 45% of the building. So there was a lot of work to be done to rescue the cultural heritage that morning. But it was also a bit of a luck because in that morning, 7:30, they have change of their shifts at the fire station at 8 o'clock. So that morning, the firefighters from the previous shift were there, and the ones who are going to take the new shift was there as well. So we had actually doubled the manning on the fire stations and were able to send 120 firefighters to the scene at one moment. I'm not going to speculate what would have happened if we had the fire at 3 o'clock in the morning, but I'm not sure that we were going to have an outcome like this. I want to emphasize the work of the CEO of the Danish Chamber of Commerce. Danish Chamber of Commerce is actually the one who owns the building. They are building owners of the old stock exchange. And the CEO came that morning. He's a former Minister of Justice, also a former Minister of Culture in Denmark. He came that morning and set an example, I think, that everybody could learn from. For the first he actually was one of the guys going inside the building to pick out the artwork. And he was also the one who helped us, give us the right information about the building. And they had a value rescue plan as well, who was followed that morning. And I think his effort, together with our efforts, was the main reason for the result we had by rescuing up 99% of the cultural heritage. I think we are at the moment evaluating the fire. We are evaluating our efforts, but there is a lot of lessons identified for now. I think we need to have a focus on our cultural heritage, not only in Denmark, but all over Europe. We need to pay special attention to buildings, cultural heritage buildings that are under renovation. Notre Dame was under renovation. The old stock exchange was under renovation. There's something we need to do when buildings are under renovation. The fire protection systems are not probably not working as well as when the building is in normal function. I also want to emphasize there's a huge responsibility for the building owner. When you have a building where you have cultural heritage, you have a huge responsibility. It's very important for the building owner to understand that responsibility, because I'm not sure that the fire service can rescue it all. The building needs to be prepared. The building owner needs to be prepared. Everybody needs to be prepared so we can make a common effort if something goes wrong. There's also great responsibility laying at the fire safety when they are planning a renovation of a building, or they are rebuilding or building a new building. There's a huge responsibility to take into consideration the cultural heritage. What we actually experienced as difficult at this fire in April, that was access to the building, how to get around, and it was also water supply. So, as I said, to a conference that was actually held by the Society of Fire Protection Engineers, the days actually when the fire was in Copenhagen, I said, please, fire safety consultants, please make my job easier, not harder. So please take this into account when you are renovating or consultants on these buildings. I think it's very important. We also have talks with authorities at the moment, so we need to figure out a way to find the right balance between safety and preservation. I know that the authorities working with cultural heritage, they are very eager to preserve as much as possible. So we need to find a right balance between the safety measures and the preservation. With these short words, I wish you all a great seminar, and please keep focus on this very important topic. Thank you.
Yeah, Jakob, thanks a lot for your statement. I think it is very important also to have your experience from this tragic accident, and so to see how we can improve in the future. And on this basis, I would like to ask you if you think, do you think that the European Union can support your work in the field of fire protection of cultural heritage, and if yes, how?
I think there's a lot of good opportunities that European and the European community can stand together to work on this issue. I think every country, every city has their own part of cultural heritage we need to protect. So actually the EU, we could also always talk about how to develop and harmonize legislation on this field. If there's some EU fire safety standards that need to be followed. I think we can also talk about how EU can do some fundings and make support programs for us to go further into this topic. And I know there's a lot of research and technology development in Europe that could be supported. Innovation in fire safety, that could be great. Figure out how could we protect these buildings and also keep in mind the balance between the safety measures and the preservation. There's a lot of digital tools we could use and develop together. And there's also more training programs and knowledge exchange. I believe knowledge exchange is one of the most important parts at the moment. We need to learn from these terrible fires that have been, so everybody can learn from both my mistakes, but also by the experiences we have had. And I think all of us here is also obligated to bring awareness to our fellow colleagues and citizens. So yeah.
Okay, thanks a lot. We have also a question in the chat asking if there were immediate lessons, but I think it goes more or less. It's more or less in line with what you just described.
I can say that we are doing evaluation of the fire, our handling of the fire. We actually do that together with the Greater Stockholm Fire Brigade, and when we're done, we'll be more than happy to share our experiences for that. Yeah.
Okay, thanks a lot, Jakob. Thanks again. Just maybe a note, because I've seen in the chat there were some technical issues from certain participants. The meeting seems to work well, so if there is a technical issue on your side, try to check a bit how you see the gallery, and if it doesn't work, just try to exit the meeting and then enter again. But maybe let's also focus the chat on more content issues so that we can reach also the discussion with some content for our speakers today. Thank you. So our next speaker is Dr. Aleš. Aleš, hello. Who is representing SFPE today, and who is a fire risk management and business continuity expert. He has a dual PhD in fire safety engineering and business administration, and he has led national and international research, taught fire safety and risk management, and guided professionals in implementing fire risk strategies. A trained firefighter and prevention officer, is currently the board chairman of the Slovenian Fire Protection Association, and previously he chaired the CTIF Fire Prevention Commission. He is also the head of the Fire Research and Innovation section at the Slovenian National Building and Civil Engineering Institute. So Aleš, SFPE has developed guidelines outlining basic principles of fire safety of historical buildings, and we would like to discover more about that. Please, Aleš, the floor is yours, and you can also, I think, share your presentation.
Eugenio, thank you. Thank you for this invitation and the kind words at the beginning. It's really an honor and pleasure to be here today. And in the few minutes that I have, I will try to walk you through the guideline that was developed by the SFPE a few years back, named as a basic principles of fire safety of historical buildings. So briefly about the SFPE, it's SFPE stands for the Confederation of Fire Protection Association. Europe, it is really a network of national fire protection organizations, and Slovenia is their member. This year in October, that was a Slovenian Fire Prevention Month. We hosted the SFPE Europe with all the SFPE commissions in Ljubljana. And working with SFPE for a few years, I really believe that the SFPE plays really an important role in addressing fire risk, improving fire safety standards, but also bringing different fire safety experts together, and starts usually different, I think, important communications in how to improve fire prevention and fire safety. There are a few objectives that the SFPE follows, and which all the SFPE members together. It's the promotion of fire safety standards. And by saying that, all the guidelines, and there are 3 different sets of guidelines, are available free of charge on the SFPE Europe websites. The topics that the guidelines cover are about fire prevention and protection, natural hazards, and security. And please remember these 3 topics, because I will come back to this, where I will try to link these 3 topics with cultural heritage buildings and their important fire safety issues. Another important topic is knowledge sharing that has already been mentioned at the beginning, education and training. So Slovenia was the initiator for the cultural heritage building fire protection guideline. And I have to say that afterwards, when the guideline was developed, at least in Slovenia, we had more than 20 different trainings, seminars, workshops for different stakeholders. And this was another, I think, benefit of the guideline. It kind of sparks lots of different discussions among the fire safety professionals, even wider, even among the legislators. Publications and the fire risk reduction is another topic that the CFPI deals with. So there are currently 23 members. The majority of them are countries that are members of the European Union, but there are also members besides that, naming some of them, such as South Africa and Turkey, and the membership now expanding to the Middle East and Asia as well. So let us now start debating and talking about the guidelines. So the basic principle of the fire safety of historic buildings. So the guideline per se is here to identify some of the steps, how to protect the historic buildings, but also how to define and address some of the risk from the various stakeholder point of view, naming some of them, firefighters, fire safety designers, building owners, so historians. So it really covers the variety or the plethora of different professionals that can somehow see themselves in this important field of the protecting historic buildings. The guideline, the first iteration of the guideline was developed, as it was mentioned before, by the Slovenian Fire Protection Association way back in 2013. Slovenia, together with some other countries, got the Erasmus Plus project in 2018. That was pretty much an official launch of the guideline, with an important international conference and several workshops among the project partners, and it really sparked kind of a lot of interesting topics and discussions about how to apply this guideline to the various topics. In 2021, the guideline was refreshed and updated, and there were some discussions recently about to maybe review and update the guideline as well. So this will be the third iteration of the guideline. What are the main topics or the areas that are discussed and written in the guidelines? So it starts with the concept of the fire protection in a historic building, defining all these 3 areas, so the active and the passive fire protection, and the organizational meanings of fire protection. It then defines the basics of fire protection measures, specifically targeted on the heritage building fire protection. There is an important chapter that talks about the staff training that defines some of the programs, that defines some of the modules, and gives a few suggestions how to organize the training, what to emphasize, where to go with different topics in terms to bring them closer to the specific stakeholders that are important decision makers, but also fire prevention key personnel. It talked about conditions for the effective intervention of the fire brigade, with some of the directions, for example, how to deal with, eagerly listening the first presentation, how to deal with different drawings or the paintings or the different artifacts that are sometimes very rare, very expensive, and prone to different risks even when they are brought outside. So this is an important topic that is defined in the guideline. The guideline also has two attachments or the additions. The first one is the checklist for the fire protection actions in historic building that helps the user to kind of walk through different topics important for the specific building. And then the second part that is again a table with lots of different questions, for example, how to run the inspection. So sort of different areas of fire protection, fire prevention, where we can identify and go over what potentially can go wrong, what can be improved, changed, or to the better kind of a state that fire safety and fire prevention. So these are this is an example of the checklist for the fire protection actions in historic buildings. So this is only one of the topics. So it gives a few basic information. The checklist can later also be shared with the fire service together with the fire order and some of the important fire plans. The important topic is that it gives all the basic contact information, the name of the contact person, but also some of the observations and, for example, alarming topics that has to be addressed by different stakeholders. So it also opens an opportunity to improve fire safety by bringing different stakeholders together and opening a discussion that or the topics that should be addressed to improve fire safety of the specific historic building. As it was mentioned before, so there is another topic at the end as the appendix is the checklist for the inspections. The checklist is written mainly for the lay personnel, so basically everybody can use it. But what we have found, our Slovenian experience is that it always useful to run or prepare a workshop where the building users or like a different stakeholders are going to be trained specifically to run this checklist and to get as much as possible out of the specific checklist for the inspections. So one thing that I would say should be mentioned towards the end, what has happened in Slovenia from this specific guideline perspective. As it was mentioned before, Slovenia has been actively involved in applying the principles. So what we have found is that we have organized specific workshops for the main Slovenian museums and some of the building owners. So down the line, and I did this check when I was working on this presentation, is the main museums now have their checklists and risk assessments updated based on this guideline recommendations. And as it was mentioned before, we have held approximately 20 or even more than that, like different workshops for the legislators, insurers, consultants, and different members of the community having firefighters an important role. I had a very long discussion for one of the fire chiefs in Slovenia about 3 weeks ago when he was preparing a presentation about the specific museum, and we realized that maybe there are some additional topics of the guideline that maybe should be changed, addressed, updated. So that's another, I would say, a push, right, for an updated version that has been mentioned before as well. So as I have mentioned before, that there are like 3 topics of the guidelines that are developed under the CFPA Europe, fire protection being one, and then security being the second. So in addition to the guideline 30 that has been described just now. So in 2023, the CFPE Europe has developed the security part of the building heritage, of the heritage building guidelines. So this one about developing evacuation and salvage plans for the works of art and the heritage buildings, with some of the directions about the preventive measures, contingency plannings, for example, with some of the, I would say, instructions how to include the planning team, who should be the members of the planning teams, what are some of the responsibilities, how to establish an inventory list, how to prioritize inventory, and how to, for example, define different properties of the art of the museum artifacts or the gallery artifacts per se. So I believe that, and this is what we have found in practice, is that the combination of these two documents gives quite a useful information for like the various stakeholders to deal with not just the building content, but the historic buildings as well. So this is a short, I would say, overview of what is currently happening within the CFPA in terms of the historic buildings. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Aleš, for this interesting presentation. I think, it's we believe a lot in Fire Safe Europe in guidelines coming from stakeholders, but also in, I would say, from the European Union. So my question to you is the following. Do you think that the CFPA guidelines provide a strong basis to develop maybe future European guidelines for the fire safety of cultural heritage? And if yes, then what are the efforts or adaptation that your work will require? Let's put it this way. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. I think yes. To your first part of the question, it probably should be used as the base for the European guideline, with some adaptations and the updates. So what, has happened recently is that we found, so many, I would say, there's a research, talking about fire suppression agents, that can, actively suppress fires in this type of buildings. And these are some of the topics that, probably should be included. The fire detection as well, that specifically, can be pivoted to the risks that are in a historic building. So definitely, yes.
Thanks a lot, Aleš.
Thank
Thanks
you
again. Our next speaker is Ralf Bruyninckx. Ralf, sorry, but I'm not good with your name. And with president of the SFPE Benelux chapter, so the Benelux chapter of the Society of Fire Protection Engineers. And Ralf started his career as a fire safety engineer at FPC Risk, the company founded by his father, Ed Bruyninckx, and he took over his father's role as owner and company CEO in 2005. Since 2023, his company is part of the Sweco Group, and with a background in both economics and fire engineering, Ralf is one of the first Europeans to earn a master's degree in fire safety engineering from WPI in the United States. His expertise in the field merges science, creativity, and innovation with a passion for pushing boundaries in developing fire safety and emergency management solutions. He chairs several commissions and is the current president of SFPE Benelux. Ralf, thanks a lot. I think you have a presentation for us.
Yes, thanks so much, Eugenio. Being one of the first Europeans, that's about 25 years ago, I must say. So a long time ago. Thanks, Fanny and Eugenio, for inviting me to this nice presentation. I hope, and colleagues, I hope to contribute here. I'm going to share a presentation that I prepared. Just give me 1 second. Yes. Hope everything works. Do you see my presentation?
Yes, we do.
All right. So I'd like to give you some more insight on the role of the fire safety engineer or fire safety engineering. when applying it to cultural heritage, and I think it's very specific because it's much more than engineering, I think, and that's part of my presentation, is trying also to convince that we should think broader than engineering only. I also have some suggestions how to involve in our discipline with the eye on future innovations and cultural heritage. I'm the current president of SFPE Benelux. I'm from Antwerp, Belgium, so you'll see most of the images are from heritage sites around Antwerp, Brussels, Ghent area, in which fire safety engineering has been successfully applied, not only by our team, but also by several other fire safety engineers. Hope you enjoy the presentation. Let's go to the next slide. So I think, before any major innovation, and we're not talking about only renovation projects only, also about assessing current situations of fire safety in cultural heritage projects. But I strongly believe that first of all, a feasibility study or note is required before starting a project and getting into an entire concept, just simply because so many different challenges and factors are involved, also different parties, especially when it comes to cultural heritage. So we have to identify that, really right from the start into the feasibility note, as I call it, and see what the challenges are. I get back to that a little bit later about what major fire safety challenges are, and also identify them already. Could be technical feasibility, could be budgets, etc. And I think the role immediately from the fire safety engineer here in this stage is think from a fire risk perspective, scenario perspective. As we all know, there are not many regulations available. There's some guidelines. My colleague from Slovenia just elaborated on that. But we have to think from a fire risk perspective and, combine technical expertise. I put technical between brackets, but combine our expertise with understanding the unique challenges that cultural heritage brings in terms of historical conservation and artifacts. The complexity and the challenges obviously lie already in the foundations of cultural heritage. The location of the heritage or the site is of prime importance. As most of you know, some historical sites in Greece, in Turkey, and all over Europe, there could be remotely located with more difficult access to fire brigades, fire officials. Also, wildfires can become an issue there, and other scenarios that we should account about. Also, the intrinsically design and the ornate details of buildings can also complicate firefighting efforts. Special challenges lie in the narrow staircases, mostly small rooms which can hinder fire safety access. And many historic buildings also contain, highly flammable material, and their age in condition is obviously unknown, which can also complicate the integrity of the building and during an incident. What are other challenges which I personally experience is funding, basically, for implementing fire safety measures. Means we should think cost effective, maybe also not only technical, but also organizational and operational. And we should come up with innovative fire protection solutions. We also have to navigate as a fire safety expert and make compromises between fire safety and historical and architectural value of a site. That's what I believe, that's where creativity comes into place. And I think as a fire safety engineer, we should be open-minded, or at least complement our team with creative thinkers that together with other partners can find solutions. And understanding who the other partners are and communicate with these other partners. Because there are different partners involved in a cultural heritage project, different than other projects. I put it in the next slide a bit as a process, but we have architects involved, we have engineers involved, we have fire officials, fire brigades involved. Jakob, who I met during the SFPE conference and just after the fire in Copenhagen, reached out for this as well. We should work more closely together. And we have other important stakeholders, historic conservation people, people from finances. So I see our role much broader than engineering, bringing these people together, come up with a note, a feasibility note, based upon risk analysis, the challenges, since we don't have a legal framework and every building is unique. Come up with a fire safety note, transform this into a fire safety concept that is carried and leveraged by all parties, and to which we can distillate distinct deliverables, active and passive fire protection systems, emergency response planning. My colleague mentioned object removal strategy that should of artifacts or paintings should be part of emergency response planning. Intervention, working together with fire brigades, also training people in a community into intervention techniques, creating awareness. Procedures and prevention should all be separate documents and deliverables that should form part of the overall fire safety management plan. So a bit the process starts from beginning, feasibility, the different parties involved, the concept and the deliverables. And I think we as fire safety engineers should steer this process in close cooperation with all these stakeholders. Obviously, after an audit, after an evaluation or renovation is done, we need to follow up and preserve on a yearly basis with monitoring meetings, with training, retraining on a 6 months yearly basis on intervention and planning. To keep everybody aware and to keep the fire safety management plan alive. Before I end up in my last slide, basically, I'd like to address a bit the view on the future, which is going to be dominated, or I think we should use innovative techniques that AI brings. We should carefully watch also about the reliability and whether how it fits into cultural heritage. But I think there are some examples already that can benefit cultural heritage and fire safety. And I'm looking at monitoring, surveillance cameras, AI integrated CCTV systems, developing to see on 24/7 basis, monitor heritage sites around the clock. And if something goes wrong, if electricity failures are, that is immediately reported and that we gain time, detection time, because I think everything more than even in other industries is related about time. When we have a fire, how to prevent it, but how to, act quickly. Also in terms of smart evacuation planning, dynamic evacuation planning, depending upon fire scenarios, algorithms can be developed, integrated with AI as well, AI. So also as a fire safety engineer, we have to look at the future and see how we can integrate this and apply this to this specific field, which is sensitive, and find a good balance between these modern techniques and historical preservation. So as a conclusion, the role of the fire safety engineer and of fire safety engineering, I think is in different phases. I think in prevention, I didn't talk too much about that yet, but I think we have a strong role in creating awareness. Hopefully the European community can help here. We can develop further guidelines. We can develop fire safety awareness apps for cultural heritage, because I think everything starts with prevention. in the design phase, not only think technical from an engineering perspective, but also from an operational perspective, develop emergency response plans, operational plans, procedures as well. And this all comes into the holistic approach. During the construction phase, as Jakob already mentioned also in his presentation, we need to develop or help the team to develop temporary measures in view of renovation works. See, what plan Bs and plan Cs are, so we can play a role there. From an operational phase, I already mentioned scenario-based evacuation and intervention plans, object removal plans. We can also help or play a significant role, I believe, in post-fire recovery, damage assessments, structural integrity assessments, and very important that this is assessed immediately after an incident to see whether the building will hold and what's necessary from a structural preservation point of view. And obviously in the entire life cycle of the building, through yearly audit training, we can also play an important role. So I believe we can assist the European Commission, UNESCO in preservation of cultural heritage, and that we play a very important role, not to be underestimated, very challenging as well. And we need to think sometimes out of the box as fire safety engineers. Put a little bit of a quote here. So sometimes we need to think a little bit like artists as well to satisfy all safety needs within cultural heritage. So that's a bit my contribution. Any questions I would like to address? Just an interesting reference guide that was published, I think, 4 years ago and presented on a conference in Chile, I believe, in South America. Check it out. Interesting piece of work. I can send the link if this is not accessible. But thanks for your attendance, and Eugenio will be happy to address any questions.
Thanks a lot. We have quite technical, maybe question in the chat. It says that the issue seems to be sometimes hidden voids in buildings. So I don't know if you could answer on this, but I also have a question myself. That is the fact that we know that especially cultural heritage demands specialized solutions in the expertise of fire safety engineering. And my question, you partially answered, maybe you can elaborate on that. If you think that the European Union could play a role by providing common principle and stronger coordination efforts in this field.
Yeah, I addressed it already, and I think my Slovenian colleague also, and they made the first important step to see, how can we, leverage this further to the European Commission and to the other unions. I think maybe with all these people around the table, we can, in the presentations and input, we get some more insight and update. Maybe this important document developed in Slovenia. And then we're looking, at the European Commission to see how we can lobby there and develop a European guideline. And if NFPA also has SFPE has a guideline already. So there's information available, but I think we should I think nowhere in the world there's so much heritage as in Europe. So I think we should stand proud and develop our own European guideline based upon what's available, not reinvent the wheel. But it has taken long enough with all our cultural heritage in Europe. Let's develop our own fire safety guideline with the input that we have today here around the table and in other parts of the world. So yes.
Thanks, Ralf. Maybe just a follow-up that comes from the chat. When it comes to design, do you base your work solely on the knowledge of your engineers or also on digital simulations?
So can you please repeat? I didn't hear exactly.
Yeah, the question is whether when it comes to design of you base your work only on the knowledge of your engineers, or you also use digital simulations, digital tools?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, well, just a difference. We as engineers have and I think most of the fire safety engineers are aware. We have simulation tools, CFD models, evacuation tools. I call this more engineering tools to find, alternatives. I didn't pay any attention here, but I find this a bit, obvious that during the concept stage we use these tools to support our analysis and to come up with creative solutions and innovative solutions. So that's definitely part of the approach here, since little regulations are available. But we need to supplement that also with other digitalizations in terms of awareness, in terms of emergency response. So broaden this up with other digital tools and innovative techniques that are available right now and will rapidly evolve. So yeah.
Yep. Maybe just a comment on my side. I think in this field, in digitalization, I think we can really help the prevention and then also the intervention of firefighters. First of all, by knowing, how the building is, the different materials that are used. But I think in cultural heritage, you also adapt the different cultural pieces that you have in the building and how to have a smart management to save the pieces of work, the pieces of art, kind of an advanced beam that you would have in this field. But when it comes to digitalization, we could talk for hours and hours, I think. But
but exactly what you say, you can make inventories, of all buildings and material specifications of all cultural buildings in Europe, and then we can have market intelligence. And there will be tools available to process this in an intelligent way. With algorithms that we can specifically then apply to your specific building or property. So
fantastic. Thanks a lot. And thanks again, Ralf, for your...
It's a pleasure. Thanks.
Thanks. So we will now start with our panel discussion. I will quickly introduce all our panelists. We start with Yannick Melinge, who is professor at Cergy Paris University and is currently seconded to the Research Laboratory of Historical Monuments under the French Ministry of Culture. With more than 25 years experience in academic research, Yannick has developed a strong expertise in building materials behaviors, combining thermal, chemical, mechanical, and hydraulic conditions in the context of passive fire protection of structures. More recently, devoted his efforts and expertise to the field of historical monuments by developing techniques for characterization and by bringing a better understanding of the behavior of lime-based gypsums and stones in the frame of fire protection and monuments restoration. Yannick, hello. Then we have Gerd Hülsen from Siemens. Gerd is an experienced engineer with a degree in communications engineering and over 25 years of experience in the fire safety industry. And since 2015, he has led the fire safety application engineering at Siemens Smart Infrastructure at the headquarters of Siemens. His expertise includes risk analysis and the implementation of safety measures, which are central to the creation of safety guidelines. As a member of the Euralarm board and vice chair of the extinguishing section at Euralarm, he has significantly contributed to the development and implementation of fire safety guidelines. Hello, Gerd.
Yeah, hello again. Thank you very much. Oh my God.
Nice to see you.
Yeah.
And then we have Francesca Sciarretta from the Joint Research Center of the European Commission. Francesca is a scientific project officer at the European Commission at the GRC, focusing on new policies and standards for safe and sustainable construction, including Eurocode's development. Previously, she spent 15 years as a civil engineering researcher at IUAV, University of Venice, and Cergy Paris University, specializing in the post-fire behavior of construction materials and restoration of historic masonry. She has contributed to the structural monitoring at Palazzo Ducale in Venice and post-earthquake assessment in Abruzzo. Francesca also teaches fire design of masonry structures to architecture and engineering professionals. Hello, Francesca. And then we have Mattias. Hello, Francesca. And then we have Mattias Delin, who has a BSc in Fire Protection Engineering from the Lund University. And after more than 20 years as a fire safety consultant, among other things, working with fire safety and cultural heritage, he took on the role in leading Brandforsk, the Swedish Fire Research Foundation, in 2019. So, hello, everyone. And
hi.
Nice to see you all. I'm just adjust my view so that I can see all the speakers. I think you can all see the speakers that are, because, yeah, okay. So I would start maybe, we had already very interesting presentations from our previous speakers. I think I can start with Yannick, especially for what it concerns passive fire protection. And my question will be, what key strategies or technologies do you believe are essential for enhancing the resilience of cultural heritage sites against fire? And do you think, a bit of a rhetorical question, but do you think that a one-size-fits-all approach is feasible in this field, or are tailored solutions required? Thank you, Yannick.
Thank you, Genio, for your introduction first and your invitation. I hope it's possible for you to hear me.
Yep.
Yep. First, I would like to answer to your second question. In most of the case, a one size fits all approach will not be possible, because each monument is quasi unique by considering different items, like previous speakers present in just before. It's important to consider the proper history of the monument, the societal weight, if it's possible to use this term, of the considered heritage, the building period of the monument, and the evolution of building technique, for example, and the given architecture and the recognition of the architect. About the key strategies, as I said before, it's really important to well know the monument, and such part is very important. Previous speakers speak about that, and it's very important to consider such fact. To take into account the context of its construction and destination, its position in a considered urban site, and as it had been said before, the existing or not technical equipment dedicated to active protection, the existing or not scenario to fight against the fire events, the public access, etc. This first expertise is really important to highlight some indicators of the fire resistance, which is probably needed before the detection of the first damage, for example. Then the diagnosis and expertise of the monument can be done by considering the behavior of the material and structure, not only the material. It's important to consider the total structure behavior and how they react and resist to fire condition. Plus, as Ralf explained, it's really important to consider the right fire which can be developed around a specific monument, for example, to consider the right scenario about the effect of the fire. In a few minutes, it's not possible to integrate all needed consideration, but the combination of the listed consideration, the reinforcement of the active protection can be proposed. It's possible to develop a realistic scenario for that, and it's more easy for me to consider the development of fire passive protection. Such protection can be added to increase the fire resistance. Such fire resistance can be based on mass effect, can be based on the insulation effect, can be based on thermochemical effect or a combination of such effect. And some new development, innovation, as Jakob said before, is really important in such context. The good adaptation of the technical protection is necessary to help the firemen. I completely agree with Jakob, to help the evacuation of the people, to protect the monument from important damage. But the good adaptation need to respect two main keys. First, the monument, because the history of the considered monument, and plus the work of the architect. It's really important to develop some different solution, active and passive solution. Finally, it's really important to consider the durability of the solution. Very often, when you develop, when we develop a solution to protect a monument, for example, we don't attempt for an accident in the next year, in the next 10 years, in the next 1 century, for example. But at the time when the accident is declared, it's important to have the right performance of the technical solution. Then what is important is the innocuity. It's important to have no damage induced by the protection itself. So such two elements represent very key elements.
Thanks a lot, Yannick. I will now maybe turn, because we have talked about passive, we also have mentioned active fire protection, so I will maybe look at Gerd for the active fire protection part. And the question is, what technical innovations and preventive measures are essential for protecting cultural assets from fire? And how does Siemens address these unique challenges of safeguarding EU cultural heritage buildings?
Yeah, thank you. When it comes to fire detection or the fire protection in historical buildings, I think we all agree, and we have heard that early detection is very crucial here. As earlier you are getting a proper information about the fire scenario, a developing fire, the better it is. And here I can say for buildings in normal use, the European fire safety industry, and including Siemens, has of course developed innovative products and systems which allowing to create, we have heard that earlier here, a tailor-right solution. I think this is very important when talking about historical building, because it's not a simple commercial building where you have a standard plane where to place the detectors and suppression systems, number of whatever, sprinkler, nozzles, etc. We have the products available. It starts with aspirating smoke detectors, with linear beam detectors, video smoke detection systems. I think this is innovation which can really help us also to preserve the historical authenticity of the buildings. And last but not least, the wireless fire detection systems, which can help also to keep the detection system up and running when doing renovation work. I think this is here and there topic, because renovation is maybe not covered by the original risk assessment. I think we hear that very early today, or very often, that we had to do a very careful risk assessment when planning renovation work. Yeah, and this is not only a question of technology. Yeah. Coming back to the innovations, I would say, ASDs allow a very, aspirating smoke detectors allow a very early detection due to the fact that they are continuously taking air samples, which traces the smallest amount of smoke before a fire fully develops. I think we all know that. And then we have the linear beam detectors. I think this is very important for historical buildings because they allow installation with a minimal structural impact. Yeah, you know, we have a system using infrared beam and reflector, which is allowing to cover large areas. And finally, we have the video smoke detectors, which can be installed, which also in a way which does not affect the building's appearance. So this is from advantage when talking about the conflict from preserving the historical authenticity of a building and installing state-of-the-art detection systems. And as said, wireless smoke detectors are also providing another non-invasive solutions for historical buildings. But what also from very, very high importance is that you can trust your detection system. So avoiding false alarm. I do not know. I think we have here the Jakob from the Danish Fire Service of Copenhagen. I think they have experienced what it means to be called to a false alarm, day in, day out. So it is very important that we have here detection systems which an advanced signal analysis technology in place, which also allow the adaptation to changing environments. I think this is very important. And then finally, technology, fire suppression, fire extinguishing is also key in historical buildings. And here we try to avoid to build on sprinklers only, because the water can damage also the delicate artifacts. Instead, we deploy nitrogen extinguishing systems, which can quench fires without any water damage. And in areas where this is not feasible, we have water mist systems which can suppress fires using, the fine water droplets, with minimizing the harm to interiors. Or we are using systems combining both. And here we have a nice installation in Copenhagen that we are protecting the Royal Archive in Copenhagen with a hybrid system combining water, mist, and nitrogen. Another sample would be the Villa Kindermann in Lodz. So we have the technology is there. It's a question to install them and maintain them.
Thanks a lot, Gerd, for this short trip in the Siemens solutions that you have for cultural heritage. But it's very interesting how you also try to look at integrating innovation, in this difficult balance that I think we have in trying to preserve the structure, but not damaging also the culture that is inside the building. And I think on this, it's mainly innovation that can save us, and it's good to, that companies like yours invest a lot in research and in development for new technologies. I now would like to ask a question to Mattias. Mattias, thank you very much. I know that your organization has carried out a project on fire safety of cultural heritage to try to consolidate existing knowledge on fire safety, but also trying to create a resource for professional and highlighting areas needing further research. So my question to you is, what are the main findings of this project, and which areas emerge as priorities for further knowledge development? Thank you, Mattias.
Yeah, thank you. Well, thank you for having me, of course, in an interesting webinar. Yeah, I think this is the work that you're referring to, and you're smart guys, you can see it's in Swedish. We gather a lot of researchers, both in Sweden and in Norway, and we wanted them to collect really what's available on research on the topic, and we also gathered the important stakeholders about this. And so, except for the research gathering, we had workshops about what are the needs, and when we had the needs and we had the available research, we could make a gap analysis. And it's really quite long. I can't really go through it all today. I would love to, but I can't. But I think some findings that I would like to address here is life cycle assessment. For example, Yannick mentioned it has to be durable, and we've seen a lot of systems that are way too complicated to maintain. They are very expensive to maintain, they leak water and they cause water damage, for example. And even though the water damage maybe is small, the goodwill damage to fire safety measurements is huge. I've met a lot of safety managers of museums. They don't know much about sprinklers, but they know everything about sprinkler leakage, and they hate it. So really think about that when you install something. Think about the damage you make to goodwill. But also, I think most of the people that we work with have all stated that maybe it's better to do a huge investment in the beginning when you install the system with low maintenance costs, and you have to think about a lifetime way beyond a normal building. I mean, the building maybe is already a couple of 100 years old. You can't have a lifetime of 25 years. That's ridiculous. And people working in those buildings, they work longer than that, so they will recognize when you come back, oh, I have to change the system. It's old now. They will think ugly things about you and your system, I'm afraid. But and something else that came up that was interesting was several people in this work, they asked for help with communicating to motivate investments. They found that very, very difficult to get the money to do things. And we have different leagues, one can say. I mean, some historical buildings are monumental and grandiose, and you have a lot of resources and a lot of staff to take care of things, but even more cultural buildings are not. They are small, they don't have staff that can take care of things, they don't have much money, and they need really simple, robust solutions to fire safety, because those buildings are very important too. So I think I looked up what would it cost to translate this to English, and it was quite a lot. So I think maybe that's one take to the EU. I mean, get some funding for translating work. I think it's a lot of good reports in domestic languages around Europe that we can share if we could get some help with the translating work.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Mattias. But look, I can maybe take. I didn't consult my board, but I'm sure that they will agree that we can try to do something in this field, trying to translate your project with the cooperation between Fire Safe Europe and Brandforsk. We will be happy to do it. So maybe after the meeting, we can try to do this and then publish a translation of this, because I think what you have found are very interesting findings. Let's keep in touch on this.
Great.
So thanks a lot, Mattias. I will now ask a question to Francesca. So Francesca, what key measures are needed to ensure that fire safety of European cultural heritage is preserved, and could you share your perspective on this?
Yes. As far as the work at the JRC is concerned, we address the field of fire safety for the built environment, especially focusing on fire safety engineering. Our work is aimed to assess the status and needs for a wider incorporation of fire safety engineering approach in the regulatory framework and in the fire design practice of European member states and also beyond. After a first assessment that we got through an inquiry that we distributed among EU and EFTA countries, plus Serbia and the UK in 2020, we are now exploring the status and needs for the application of fire safety engineering in more detail. I will post in the chat the link to our first report that was published in February 23 last year. First of all, we believe our work is kind of oriented by the concept that design is a crucial phase for ensuring the fire performance of both new and existing buildings. And even more, we see that the majority of stakeholders is now putting a great emphasis on the reuse of buildings, as reuse is an effective way to sustainability in the built environment, meaning first of all less soil consumption. And we think that this attention will bring existing buildings more and more into the spotlight of new and updated design provisions. For instance, we can cite the second generation Eurocode EN 1990, which will include the assessment of existing buildings into the basis of structural design. And when we come to cultural heritage, when we deal with existing buildings that belong to cultural heritage, we talk about unique buildings whose formal characteristics are of public interest for their preservation. And it is now taken for granted that fire safety engineering, which is made of quantitative and rational methods, is the proper approach, is the most fit approach to provide an adequate fire safety design, also through design for preservation, for sustainability, structural adequacy, or reuse. Now our work is focusing in detail along two directions that are standardization for fire safety engineering and the education that supports the expertise of designers. My point of view, from my point of view, standardization would bring great benefits for the fire safety of cultural heritage buildings and also for the works of art that they usually contain. In particular, because thanks to our inquiry and also to previous results that we could access, we realized that more standardization is highly desired by European fire safety regulators as a support for the activity of designers, of fire safety designers. And then the recent and also less recent fire accident. I am a Venetian. I remember Molino Stucchi fire event when I was an architecture student long ago. They enlighten the issue of fire safety of buildings during renovation works. Cultural heritage may be seen as a subset of the issue of renovation in buildings. And the peculiarity of this kind of fire accidents on cultural heritage and during renovation is the low frequency but very high impact. And the challenges that in the case of renovation are quite different from any other situation, let's say from construction phase, demolition phase, and of course service life. I mean, during renovation, we often have the presence of people using the building. The presence of additional combustibles as conglomerate panels, let's say, and a very high likeliness of fire spreading. Then, as we know that solution can be available for normal buildings, like standards for minimum safety requirements during renovation works. While, for example, I mean the NFP 241 in the USA, while this may apply to ordinary buildings, we believe that a performance-based approach and fire safety engineer would better fit the uniqueness of cultural heritage building. Finally, let me just add a short consideration. Education would also be of great help, because from this particular perspective, it would help cultural heritage officers to understand engineers, fire safety engineers, and the principles and ways of fire safety engineers to provide an adequate level of fire protection. Both our inquiry and also the other previous inquiries that we could access, inquiries carried out by ESO and by SEN in the past years, enlightened, they all were in perfect agreement that a lack of education is widespread. And this not only entails the lack of expertise in designers, but also in officers and regulatory reviewers of fire safety design. For this reason, we are now working to map the available education, especially at university level in Europe, for fire safety engineering. And also, wherever we have information, we have data of training available for all the designers and also all the types of figures that are involved in the process of design, review, and approval of fire safety design with fire safety engineering. We are now drafting a new report, which will be issued next year. And we are leaning on a network of fire safety experts, but we are open to contribution and to build other relations with other possible stakeholders.
Thank you, Francesca. Thanks a lot. We have more or less a comprehensive view, I would say, of what the GRC is doing and how you see the issue. We are a bit maybe late in on the schedule, so I will extend maybe the meeting for another 10-15 minutes so that we can have maybe more views from our panelists. Yannick, I think after this webinar today, we have established that fire safety for cultural heritage really requires a tailored approach. But still, do you think that it will still be beneficial to establish common principle of coordination and support at the European Union level?
Thank you very much. A tailored approach is indeed required, and an absolute protection, as we discussed from the beginning of the meeting, an absolute protection does not exist. However, a set of good practices can be proposed by integrating the multidisciplinary nature of the protection of historical monuments. Plus, the federation of competencies is essential, and the exchange of knowledge and expertise at a European level can only be beneficial to master the protection and the conservation of historical monuments. For sure, at a European level, innovation is really important to all the time increase our understanding of the phenomenon and to increase the effect of solution. And finally, as Jakob explained at the beginning of the meeting, an harmonization of the legislation is needed. But such a way is really important to consider such questions, such consideration for our historical monument at a high level in international context. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yannick. Gerd, so always a question regarding the role of the European Union. Do you think what could be the actions the European Union can take to support businesses like Siemens and other private sectors leaders in deploying advanced fire safety technologies for cultural heritage? What do you think?
Yeah, we have here the word standardization, as a standard or a standardized fire safety regulation would help us by defining a minimum level of protection for what we classify as cultural heritage in Europe. But as I think it was Mattias said, do not think only about the huge monument buildings and things like that. I think we are facing the situation that we have very small, smaller heritage sites which operate on very tight budgets, which make it very difficult to implement advanced fire safety systems. And here I would say that, of course, thinking about European Union, I think grants, as EU grants, could help to bridge the final gap for those heritage sites. This would be one thing. And we had it also earlier today, it is education and training, because I think this is very important. And here you could support that, those training programs for site managers and emergency responders. I think this is also crucial to ensure that they are really equipped with the knowledge and skills to handle emergency cases effectively. I think this would be from my point of view, the most important things, which maybe could be done fast.
Thank you. Maybe just a follow up on this, because I also have, maybe Gerd, if you can answer this as well, a follow up on the fact that it is true what Mattias was saying on the small cultural, let's say, sites. But I think also sometimes it's also quite difficult to define what is a cultural heritage and what is not, because sometimes buildings also have another function. So they are not recognized purely as cultural heritage, but they have another function, and they are not recognized as cultural heritage, but maybe they should, and they should protect it in a certain way, a more tailored approach. How do you see it, Gerd?
Yeah, as said, I think in Europe we classify historical buildings. And as soon a building is classified, I think this would be then the entry level to getting EU fundings for protecting those. And of course, it is maybe not possible to see really all buildings around Europe which have that potential, but it is a way to go. Start and classify them, register them and classify them, and then bring in the minimum level of fire protection for those buildings. And this, from my point of view, all start with a proper fire detection and education and fire drills for the people there, and also for the local fire services, that they know what to do in the case of a fire in that building. So,
thank you. Thank you for your answer. Mattias, how do you see this? How do you see the role that the European Union can play in this field?
Well, a lot of things, I think, and a lot of good things already said. But from my point of view, we're going to be with facilitating research and communicating that. I think one really low-hanging fruit is to address this into the Horizon program, for example, so that we can fund more research in the area. But I think one problem that I see, at least in Northern Europe, where I mainly work, is that, well, let's put it this way. How many of us would have our job if the job didn't exist? And that's kind of like the situation if you want to be a researcher in fire safety and cultural heritage. There are no place to go for you. And if you want to have good solutions, you need knowledge about fire safety, of course, but you also need to know the preservation of buildings and maybe traditional building methods, and then you need moisture, know about moisture, because you cannot add moisture when you add fire safety, and then you need to know about energy efficiency of buildings, because that will be a topic too. So we can do interdisciplinary projects where we gather people that know all those things, but then they scatter. But we need holistic scientists that know a piece of all those things to really merge it into a scientific knowledge that they can do research in, they can educate people in it, and so forth. And I think if we want young PhD students to invest their lifetime career into this, we have to give them somewhere to work. So I think that's a huge thing to do, and I think that we can do it together in Europe, because we have all the pieces from the jigsaw puzzle, but we have to put it together. And maybe it's a virtual center for fire safety and science for cultural buildings or something like that, so that we can have researchers in many countries, but we need to really put it together and raise new researchers that can really own this. So that's not a low-hanging fruit. That's really a way up the ladder. But the low-hanging fruit, address it into the Horizon program.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
And finally, Francesca, maybe you have already maybe described also the work of the JRC, but I don't know if you want to add anything on this point.
Yes, I would specify that safety and fire safety, of course, remains a competence of the member states under the principle of subsidiarity. The European Commission, the JRC, in this case, carries out complementary activities, complementary to the regulatory activities in each member state, that are aimed to support collaboration and exchange at European level, exchange of information, good practices, among the relevant stakeholders in the member states. In this sense, we especially collaborate, and we will continue to collaborate for the next 3 years with DG GROW of the European Commission in the framework of a specific administrative agreement that includes a task on fire safety engineering, and we will collaborate with the other stakeholders that are represented in our fire safety engineering expert network, which supports currently our work on this topic. This expert network includes standards committees and ISO relevant technical committees for fire safety. and many other stakeholders, and other possibly will join the network. We will identify gaps and good practice and propose topics for further development. Currently, our scope is, we are trying to enlarge our scope, especially to standardization for buildings at wildland urban interface zones. Which is a particularly hot topic, especially in countries like Greece. We know about the terrible wildfires last summer in Greece. And we have some points to start from our previous work. We know that of the many countries, the 32 countries that responded to our inquiry, 24 actually allow for the application of fire safety engineering to cultural heritage buildings. This is, we believe this is a positive marker and a good start for further investigation and most of all further support to a wider implementation of fire safety engineering in practice.
Thanks, Francesca. Thanks a lot for also this complementary information on the work of the GRC and the cooperation with DigiGrow of the European Commission. Any additional point from any of our panelists, something that you used to add to the discussion? Something you want to add? Otherwise, I will maybe move to the end of the meeting and try to also to talk about some conclusion. I think what has been clear today from our discussion and our presentation is that especially in the field of cultural heritage, we need a tailored approach because there are many elements to be considered, and every cultural building is unique. We also know that fire safety is a national competence, but despite all of this, more coordination and support from the European Union will be an added value. This can take the shape of guidelines. We already have a basis. We have today assessed the CFPA. Maybe they can be integrated also with support and the feedback from other stakeholders. We do not have to reinvent the wheel, but for sure we can do more work on this and complement information that we already have, that the European Union can help on the exchange of information and best practices between the different countries and the different stakeholders. That the European Union can help also in trying to understand, to develop more knowledge on the buildings, on the elements of the buildings, but also on the pieces of art that are inside. You know, we know many that are more. There are many horizontal and general exercise in this field. We have digital logbooks. We have the support for BIM. You know, we have different models. But we need maybe to have a more I would say plug-in for cultural heritage that will be maybe useful in this existing scheme and the initiatives of the Commission in this field, of the European Union in this field. Standardization can and will help also in this field, especially when it comes to the profession of fire safety engineering, but also the definition of cultural heritage that the European Union can help in the support for firefighters and the fire safety engineering profession. Education also plays a role. We have to also have a look at durability and life cycle assessment of the buildings. And finally, as Mattias was saying, that more financial support, not only Mattias, but the different stakeholders have highlighted this, that more financial support for holistic research will be needed, especially through programs like Horizon. Those were my My main, I would say, bullet points for out of this discussion. I don't know if you have anything to add, something that you think it is important to focus on. And good, I think it was comprehensive enough, but I think it's a discussion that is only starting and it's something that we can develop more in the future. I would like to thank all the speakers and all the participants that have been here today. The webinar will be available. We will also send you a message regarding that. In the chat, I also read that raising awareness with the general public is fundamental. Yes, of course, we did, and we also discussed about this, and it's good to include it. To include this, it's also one of our points in our proposals for a European fire safety strategy that you will find that is supported by the main stakeholders in the fire safety sector, and you can find on www.keepufiresafe.org. So that you can also have a look at this initiative. There are stakeholders here that are also signatories. Gerd, you know it through your alarm. So I'm happy also to stress this point. I would like to thank everybody again, and let's keep in touch for to better protect our cultural heritage. Thanks a lot. Have a nice
thank you
day, and have a nice European Fire Safety
Thank you very
Week.
much.
Thanks and bye.
bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.